Hello there, and welcome to the 6th episode of my quick tutorial series for Against the Storm. In this episode, we're going to cover the difficulty levels and general things about how biomes affect your run and how you can prepare yourself regardless of which biome you play. So, I have made a couple of episodes before. It's episode 6 after all, so the playlist link down there in the description box leads you to episode 1 if you want to see them all. Now, first up, I want to cover the topic of difficulty levels because I find the in-game descriptions rather esoteric. On Settler, we get the information that our villagers will eat less food. On Pioneer, we need more reputation, alright. But then, well, things become a little bit obtuse. Blight Rot and Corruption. Blight Rot and Corruption. Alright, the prestige levels on the other hand are all pretty nice and self-explanatory, and in all honesty we will only skim the topic of prestige levels in this video. I'm more interested in the lower rungs of the ladder here. So, Settler is pretty straightforward. Like the topic says, villages will eat less food, which means it's going to be easier on this end already, but what you don't get told here is that the whole game is set on easy mode. The hostility that you gain from any source is lowered in this difficulty level. The orders that you receive are of the lowest difficulty. Basically everything in the game is tuned down to the lowest thing. It's not only the villagers eating less food, it's even the seasonal conditions being as low as possible. This is the ideal area to learn the game and to understand how to win the game. Once you've understood how to win the game, this will be a guaranteed win, promise. Pioneer, on the other hand, requires you to have a couple of more reputation points, and as you can see here, the storms are also getting a little bit more severe here on this end. Pioneer, at the same time, still has the lowered hostility impact, if I'm not wrong, at this end, and altogether, the only real difference between Settler and Pioneer is that people now eat a little bit more, and you need more reputation points. So basically the game goes a little bit longer. Once we enter Veteran, we enter Blight Rot and Corruption, and also we have a much more severe seasonal condition palette here. This is basically where the game will stay from here on, you see? It doesn't get worse than that, no matter how high you climb. So this is real weather. From Veteran on, you have this is basically the normal difficulty of the game. I have checked out the tables on the Wikipedia, and this is where basically everything is on 1 times difficulty. There's also Blight Rot included, which ironically only will happen when you have activated Rain Punk things in your city. If you don't, Blight Rot will even not occur, except for a couple of Clade events. But it's very simple. You just build a Blight Rot station out of planks, and there you construct some Blight Rot destroying fuel to burn away Blight Rot cysts. It is, at the end of the day, just an extra tax on workers and fuel. Is all behind Blight Rot. Blight Rot will become forced on you eventually in the prestige levels, but before you go there, Blight Rot is an entirely optional mechanic occurring sometimes on some Clade events. That's where things can happen, but besides that, it doesn't get forced on you. Beyond these points, Veteran has also more difficult orders from this point on. They're not the hardest orders that you can get, but you will have a couple of more difficult quests on this end also to resolve. On top of that, of course, more punishing seasonal conditions. Once you go over to Viceroy, it looks like the same, but it's not. The big difference between Viceroy and Veteran is that the difficulty level of orders has spiked up, and altogether, yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that I have found. That let me check one last time, not that I say something wrong here. The multipliers in terms of rewards go a little bit up, but the Viceroy difficulty does not really change much besides the difficulty of orders. So Veteran and Viceroy are very similar. The only difference there is that you get confronted with more hard orders. And once you are in the prestige layers, only hard orders, plus the extra imposed difficulty thing that every prestige layer forces on you. So prestige 1, even more reputation, and it even says harder orders. Prestige 2, same difficulty as Prestige 1. All the previous ones always get added on top, and the storm lasts longer. Blightrod appears every third clearance season. Prestige 3 is exactly the point where you are forced to interact with Blightrod every run, no matter what you do. And yeah, from that point on, the game gets more and more nightmarish. But it really only changes what is being told down there in the bottommost line. The first few levels are the most obtuse and confusing ones. What's also very, very worth noting here is, if you have trouble with the higher difficulty levels, the veteran level gives you or the Viceroy gives you 5 times the basic rewards of the lowest difficulty or something like that. Prestige 1 gives you only 5.1 times more reward. This every prestige level is only a tenth of a really a low amount more rewards. It's more about the challenge. So if you are really hell bent on upgrading your citadel, you really are best off. I'd even go as far with low prestige runs, Viceroy, wherever you can beat well, because the reward increase is not nearly as high as the difficulty increase. Just saying. So I think this gives you a good overview about what these difficulty levels mean and where you want to play them. My personal recommendation to end this topic here is to start out with Settler until it feels really boring, then you go up to Pioneer until it feels boring, and so on and so forth. Believe me, I myself, before I learned this game, have played so many games on Settler, experimenting and trying out what works and what doesn't. I didn't lose many games, but I enjoyed the stress-free environment where I could experiment whether or not I understood the game mechanics well. If you like to lose and get some smacks in your face while you're learning, skip Settler and Pioneer entirely and start Veteran. The cool part about this game is, I keep stressing it out, even if you lose, you get always some of these resources here, and there's really nothing to lose. Choose to your own liking. So the most important thing is that you're enjoying your time while playing this game. Now to the second half of this video, biomes. So there's tons of different biomes here. We have already explored in the first couple of episodes the Royal Woodlands. I want to give you a couple of ideas and tools how to evaluate a biome before you enter it, so you can prepare your run accordingly, because you get this nice conditions screen here. This gives you a preview about what will be happening over there. So let's not choose one that's next to a feature here like that. So here, for one thing, every biome, or I think it's all of them, have something special going on for themselves. So in the Royal Woodlands, you have a biome effect that even cranks out more wood. The trees have a lot of wood, and you also get a couple of interesting side products. Resin can be used for luxury products. Plant fiber is a good material for fabric, which means in this biome you'll never have a shortage of planks and fabric. This is one thing that I can't directly take away out of that. I also get eggs out of the trees, which means food is also a little bit easier to acquire. So the longer you play this game, the more you'll be able to get out of these informations, obviously. But let's move on over to the Coral Forest, and there's another thing that is really interesting to note in the summary area. The descriptions are really interesting to read, as they give you already an interesting thing, but the fertile soil amount is noted here. There are areas where there's a low amount of fertile soil. There, marshlands. These are biomes where you should really not try to rely too much on agriculture, and rather go for a focus on camps and foraging, because there's a high likelihood that drafting farms and the like will go bad for you. This is one thing. The fertile soil count on these biomes is really, really something important to note out. The other thing is that, for example, here, this is a good example. The inspiring pressure environmental effect gives us a higher chance of double yield for hostility levels. This is an entirely new take on your environment, because that means the more dangerous your environment, the more chances you have to get more rewards. So this is really powerful. And when we check out areas like the Scarlet Orchard, there's archaeology happening here. So this is another completely new mini game for this area. And in the marshlands, you get, for example, meat for stone and clay produce. There's a lot of things. But the most important thing to note is that in certain areas, you'll have more trouble working with wood than in others. This is one of the things that the game doesn't really tell you well beforehand, but some biomes have really a shortage of wood. To give you a preview, it's marshlands primarily, and sometimes in the core forest I also have a little bit of trouble there. But altogether, what I want to point out is, if you're not playing Royal Woodlands or Cursed Royal Woodlands, which are also very rich in wood, it pays off to have a plan B in terms of fuel production. In general, I highly recommend to have a plan B in fuel production. Do not only go for wood, go either for mining coal, producing oil. These things help you a ton. There's also new biomes with the DLC, namely the Coastal Grove, which includes some really cool new resources. And in all honesty, I gotta admit, reading all those resources and understanding what you can do with them is really something that only grows over time. This game has way too many different items going on there, so it's really hard to I can't even look at them here, it's a shame, but it's really hard to keep an overview about all of these things and what you can do with them. The longer you play Against the Storm, the more you will know that, for example, mushrooms can be ground down to flour and be eaten directly, for example. So an environment where that stuff is given, mushrooms can be a substitute for grain. There's a lot of things, and what I want to boil it down to is two things. One, keep a good eye out for your soil forecast, because this really massively changes up my strategical decisions. I mean, drafting a plantation in an area where there's almost no fertile soil would be devastating. And the other thing is, check out what's growing on the trees. The natural resources tab isn't that interesting, but the trees. Trees are your most abundant resource that you will grind during each and every run, which means these resources that you can find in the trees are those that are going to be used most and going to be most abundant for you in every colony, basically. This is something that I found over the time very useful. For example, the Crimson Forest here yields copper ore naturally, so you can make metal in this biome so easily because it's coming off the trees directly. Yeah. Okay, so these things will help you out in each and every biome without going too specifically in all biomes. I want to do a quick tutorial video like all of these that I did for this series for each biome specifically, but I wanted to keep things general for this video. I hope it helped you out. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about the Smoldering City Citadel upgrades, because there's a great deal of things to talk about there as well. Yeah. Let me know in the comment section what you want to see in this series covered too. Leave me a like, leave me a subscribe. Like I said initially, in the description box there's a playlist link if you want to see the entire series. There you go. As a last thing, I want to say thanks to everybody supporting Icon Gaming. I really appreciate your help, folks, and of course feel free to join on in. I really want to say thanks to all of you crazy fellas. I really appreciate. And of course, thanks for watching this video. See you all on the next one. Bye-bye.